Hello to everybody. We're starting to get some comments saying hello. And yeah, let's see here. Hey Kyle and Kat and Felicity, Noah, and a whole bunch of cool people. One sec, let me turn up the AC in here. It's freaking cold. As it should be in winter, I suppose. Hey Ross, this is a Q&A with Alexander Winn, the creator of TerraGenesis. Here to just jump in and chat about some stuff and answer some questions. I always like talking to the fans. We are just on the cusp of the holiday break, so you can see I have Christmas colors because wahoo Christmas. And yeah, just hanging out and answering some questions. Hello Rebecca, always good to see you. And yeah, we've got some people chiming in with where they are. That's always fun. Nicaragua and Mexico, and yeah, some awesome stuff. Well, hey everybody, this is fun. We haven't done this enough. So let's see here. I'm getting messages from any number of channels. Things are coming in through Slack and Facebook, and just got a YouTube comment and all sorts of stuff. Hey Jordan, new faction please, a compromise between the sons and daughters. What would that even look like, a compromise between the sons and daughters? It would be like, do nothing. A bunch of people are interested in a new faction, that's good. All right. James says you should do this weekly. We actually are going to be doing this monthly. Weekly would be a little intense, I think. Although if you're interested in hearing more of my voice, and why wouldn't you be, because I'm awesome, be sure to subscribe to the Edgeworks Entertainment YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/edgeworksentertainment, because we like keeping things strange. And yeah, we do weekly videos. I have a vlog series where I talk about all sorts of space stuff and science stuff and behind the scenes of TerraGenesis. And then we also have a new show on Twitch called The Synthesis, which is hosted by me and Lacey, my wife and co-founder, where we talk about movies and books and TV shows and talk about how they represent real science and real history. So we started out with Apollo 13, and then we watched Gravity, and now we're making our way through The Martian chapter by chapter, and eventually we're going to do the movie as well. So it's been a lot of fun to do. We've been doing it here in the studio, and be sure to tune in. We do it every week on Twitch at 5:30 Pacific time, and then we mirror it to YouTube the next morning. So we've got the link there in the chat, so be sure to subscribe. We've got some cool stuff. So let's see here. Mike, hey, happy Friday. And Chris Rock asks, can we acquire the Ishtar program? Chris, you are the Ishtar program. No. The Project Ishtar is from the Historical Earths campaign in TerraGenesis. For those who haven't played it, it's an automated terraforming system that the Gaians develop and the Sons of Hephaestus are desperately trying to stop. So for those of you who like the lore of TerraGenesis, the characters and the backstories, be sure to check out the Historical Earths campaign. It's a lot of fun. Kyle, will the Dream of Mars LTE be tweaked? It will be tweaked. It has been tweaked, but probably not in the way you're hoping. We wanted the legendary events to be really hard. They are, in fact, really hard. The Dream of Mars is not impossible. We had some people finish it, but it's just on one end of the bell curve of really hard. The Sons of Hephaestus is the other side of the bell curve, which is quite easy, but Horizon is going to be very hard, and it's going to stay that way. If you don't like it, tell Hunter. I'm sure he's in the chat. He's a fiend of a person and really responsible for everything that's wrong in this world. So yeah, let's see here. What other questions do you have? Be sure to post them in the chat. I've got it here in a sidebar, so I'm watching it all stream by. I apologize in advance if I don't answer your question. They are we're getting comments coming quite quickly. Hunter clearly objects to my characterization of him, which was entirely accurate, and he just has to deal. So let's see. Will we be seeing something like the solar mirror for water and oxygen, so we can leave our populations growing without worrying about imbalance? That's something that people have asked for a lot, is something equivalent to the Soletta for the other metrics. We don't have any plans to do it, and it's really sort of for two reasons. The first is that it would just be too easy. Like, what is a game of TerraGenesis if you have systems doing it all? Like, what would you do? Like, I honestly don't even know what you would spend your time on in Terra. You know, it's like you would build cities and just watch your population grow and wait. But the other reason is from a scientific accuracy standpoint. You know, we've got, so the different metrics in TerraGenesis, temperature, pressure, oxygen, water, and then biomass and all that. Temperature is really the only one that comes from elsewhere. You know, the atmospheric pressure just is the atmospheric pressure. The oxygen levels are what they are. The water, you only have a certain amount of water on the planet. The heat is coming from the sun. And so you can have a satellite that is either shading the planet or reflecting more light back down onto the planet to regulate its temperature, but you can't like really influence water levels from a satellite. Like, that's not really a thing. So yeah, it sort of doesn't really track in universe, and then out of universe from a game standpoint, it would just make everything easy. Like, what, you know, it's sort of, cheat codes are fun when they let you do interesting things, but that wouldn't really make anything interesting. That would just stop gameplay. Let's see here. Oh, hey, I used to work testing your game and I loved it. Just wanted to say keep up the great work. Hey, that's awesome. Thanks for tuning in. If you used to work testing your game, I assume that means you work at TagWiz, which is the company that tests our game, which is awesome. Folks, the sheer number of bugs that I have tried to give you all and our QA testers stopped me from doing it. It's embarrassing. Yeah. The first couple of years of TerraGenesis, I released it on my own. It was just a thing that I did in my spare time. I made the whole game by myself. And if we have any old timers in the chat, you can maybe share some stories. There were some bad ones. One time I released a bug into the wild that changed everybody's difficulty rating to expert, bam, mid-game, which is especially bad because in expert mode, certain facilities have different effects. So you would log in and suddenly your pressure would skyrocket because all of a sudden that's what the spaceport does now or whatever. And yeah, there were some bad ones. But when we signed up with Tilting Point, our publisher, they hooked us up with TagWiz, the QA company, and now anytime we do an update, it has to go through TagWiz. So if there are any players out there who are antsy, desperately waiting for an update to come out and wondering why it's taking so long, Kyle, I'm looking at you. That is also TagWiz's fault because TagWiz has to approve all of our builds. But it's okay because every time we roll out an update, TagWiz comes back to us at least once and is like, hey, this update's pretty cool. We really like the new features you added, except you know that it like deletes everybody's games, right? And we're like, we did not know that. And then we go fix it, and then we roll out the update. So yeah, life would be a lot harder without TagWiz. So thank you for working at TagWiz and testing TerraGenesis, because you're awesome. Charlie, what is the best strategy when first starting off? And what is the ratio for buildings to get perfect balance for a beginner? So here's part of the fun of TerraGenesis. There is no answer to that question. I know a lot of players of other games, like especially StarCraft, get really into sort of min-maxing and figuring out exactly the right build and that sort of thing. But in TerraGenesis is what I like to call a Goldilocks game, which is to say that a planet that's too hot is no better than a planet that's too cold. You know, most games, there is a goal that you're trying to get to, and there's sort of no such thing as doing too much. You know, you play Halo, there's no such thing as killing too many of the enemies. You do them all. And so anything that can make you more powerful in that, if you get the rocket launcher, it'll be even better, because you're just trying to do as much as possible. But with TerraGenesis, you have a goal, but then you can also go too far past that goal. And so, hey, what are the first buildings that I should build? It depends on what planet you're on. You know, Mars has an atmosphere that's too thin and it's freezing cold. Venus has an atmosphere that's too hot and that's too thick and it's way too hot. So it depends. Every planet has different configurations, and if you build the same buildings every time, it's not gonna, like, you're gonna do the wrong thing. You're gonna thicken the atmosphere of Venus, and now it's even worse. So that's part of the fun for me of TerraGenesis, is that it makes you think. There is no sort of right answer every time. You have to address things as they come up. Michelle says, I can't seem to get the latest update, 5.18. 5.18 is not finished rolling out. So if you can't get it, it's because you're not in the, I think it's to 60% right now, something like that. So you're probably in the later group. For those who don't know, we had a TerraGenesis 5.15 was the last update brought to you by yours truly. We had, by the way, a little bit of Edgeworks backstory. A year ago, actually almost exactly a year ago, TerraGenesis had 3 developers. It was me, and then it was 2 other guys that we had hired and who had been working for us, and they were great. And then one of them left to go to another company because he's having kids and they pay more than our little indie studio can, and who can blame him? He's having kids. And then the other one left this spring, and so for most of 2020, it's been just me again. So I've been doing all the updates entirely by myself. 5.15 was the last one, and then we signed with our publisher in a new arrangement where they are handling development, which is awesome. Tilting Point is stepping in with their own developers, and they are, sort of grabbing the baton of TerraGenesis and running with it. Don't worry, if this is news to you, don't worry, we are still involved. We are still guiding the storyline, and we still have a hand in everything. It's just not my hand on the keyboard actually writing the code and fixing the bugs and adding the new features and blah, 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 blah. So here's the important part for 5.15, Michelle, or for 5.18, Michelle. 5.15 was the last update that I did. Me, Alexander Winn, with my hands. 5.16 was the first update that was done by Tilting Point's developers, who were entirely new to the game. So they were learning it. They had several months of sort of getting used to it and learning about it and all that sort of stuff. And then they worked up some updates. They were mostly internal, so like a lot of people were like, what's in 5.16? And it's like nothing interesting because they're just getting the hang of it. So they're doing some stuff under the hood, and they rolled out that update, and there were a couple of bugs because, again, they're new at this, so I was helping them out. We rolled out 5.16 partially, and then we realized that there were bugs, so then we started 5.17, and we rolled that out partially, and then we realized that there were a couple of more bugs, so now we're rolling out 5.18, so it's really just sort of one update. 5.16, 5.17, 5.18, they're all the same thing, just with more fixes included. So 5.18 is rolling out. We hope that this is the one that actually does what it's supposed to do. But yeah, that is what has been happening. I saw a couple of people talking about how Apple is always last. Yes, that's true. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Apple fanboy, but the one thing, love them or hate them, that you have to give to Apple is that they are control freaks, which is often great because all of their phones work exactly the same. If you have something that works on one phone, it's going to work on every iPhone and every iPad, and everything is perfect. It's all tight, it's all efficient, it's great. But it also means that they're control freaks for you as well, which means that when you roll out an update on Android, you can just do that. You can just be like, hey, here's an update, and you toss it out to the players. On Apple, you have to submit it to Apple, and their people look over your update and do a little code review, and then they look at your new screenshots, and then they look at your and then they inevitably get back to you, and they're like, oh, you're using this one feature wrong, fix it, and you have to sort of go 9 rounds with them and then release it. So whenever we roll out an update, it's almost always Android starts its rollout on one day, and then Apple starts its rollout the next, because in that intervening day, we submitted it to Apple, and they reviewed it and approved it, and now we can roll it out. So, the price you pay for a bug-free ecosystem, but, you know, it is annoying, especially when there's something urgent going on. Kaylee says it TerraGenesis reminds them of Master of Orion 2, which is the best compliment that I've had in a while. I love Master of Orion 2. Master of Orion 2 is one of the great games of all time, and thank you very much. That is awesome. Let's see here. Kyle, even though PC is still on 5.12, yeah. Kyle, sorry. All the PC users, sorry. We're trying to add a long-anticipated feature to Windows, and it's just... I hit a wall, and I don't even know anymore. I literally can't even, is really the final thing here. But hopefully one day Hunter and his new devs will figure out PC and get it working, and we will finally have an update on PC. Kyle, thank you for your patience. Hey, we have a few questions from Discord. What questions do we have from Discord? Do I have to go to Discord? I'm jumbling many devices right now. Let's see. Are you going to have more possible plagues inspired by COVID? Could it be interesting events? We do have a plague event right now. I think it's only on expert mode because it's pretty punishing. But it's a new disease breaks out in one of your cities, and you have to choose: do you lock down the city, in which case it costs a lot of money, but the disease doesn't spread, or do you not, and then you save money, but it has the chance to spread to other cities and even more people die. So that is there. We're probably not going to do more than that. We also have Lethe, which is one of the playable worlds and has a disease storyline that is unique to that planet. So if anybody hasn't played it, it's in the Fictional Worlds bundle. It's called Lethe, and it's about basically an alien, like Alzheimer's plague, basically. Like, the more time you spend on the planet, the more you just kind of... It ruins your mind, and you just sort of walk out of your house and off into the wilderness and die of exposure. Let's see. TerraGenesis, what is the reasoning behind mining? And why did you choose carbon, iron, and all the various resources? Are they randomly dispersed? Okay, so 3 questions. First, what's the reasoning behind mining? The reasoning behind mining is... I'm not totally happy with the mining system in TerraGenesis, to be honest, and I've never really come up with a better solution. I've tried, but I don't know, it's kind of lame. But the idea here is that I've always had a belief that I'm surprised more people aren't talking about when it comes to exploring space and specifically building cities on other planets. You know, people always talk about how expensive it is to land on Mars and to build cities and all that, and why would you do it? Why wouldn't you just stay on Earth? And generally, when people talk about making it economically viable, they talk about mining. And I just think that's dumb. Like, what could you possibly mine on Mars that is more cost-effective to mine it there and ship it back to Earth than just to mine it on Earth? That's not cost-effective. But, luckily, there's a better answer. And that is, if you went back in time 500 years and asked the great powers of Europe, why are they colonizing North America and South America, they would tell you raw materials. They would say gold and silver. If you ask the French, they would say furs. They had these sort of basic things that they wanted out of the New World, and they got a lot of them. They got a lot of gold and silver out of the New World. It was sort of a bad time had by all, but hey, mission accomplished. But here's the rub. Fast forward 500 years, or even a couple hundred years, and North and South America make way more money in other things rather than raw materials. They make so much more money in cultural exports like movies and music, in technology, in even just sort of the basic economics of like restaurants and, bookstores and all that sort of stuff. The American economy probably makes more in in iTunes purchases every year than all the gold and silver that Spain and Portugal took out of the New World. And that was a big part of what I wanted to sort of showcase in TerraGenesis, is you land and yeah, you're like mining for stuff and you're getting your little economy going, but it's not that long before you're getting way more money from your sports stadiums and your inventions and your great, cultural leaders and all these sorts of things than you ever were from mining. And that, I think, is really sort of the promise of Mars and of space. It's not about mining for gold and shipping it back to Earth. It's about Martian cuisine. Like, think about how much southern food, like fried chicken and apple pie and, like hot dogs and hamburgers and all the American foods. Think about how much money they have generated over the last couple of 100 years. Martian cuisine has that same potential. Think about all the stories that have come out of the United States, the cowboy genre, the hard-boiled detective genre. Did you know that musicals are an American invention? The whole idea of like Broadway musicals and theatrical musicals, those are an American thing. And those alone have probably made billions of dollars in the 200 years since they first started happening. And that could happen on Mars. You would have Martian film genres and Martian music and Martian cuisine, and these things are how you make money with a city on Mars. And so that was really sort of what I was trying to showcase with the economic system of TerraGenesis. And so I guess kind of my biases were showing. Like, I don't really care about mining on Mars, and so the mining system is kind of lame. I don't know. How did I choose those resources? Because they are an ascending scale of value, basically. It's actually a little bit of a flub. When I put carbon, I actually think I meant to put silicon, which is what most rocks are made out of. So it's, just you pick up a rock. Hey, look, silicon. And I accidentally put carbon. And then, are they randomly dispersed? Yes. Yes. They have different rarities, as you can see if you build the orbital surveyor. But yeah, there's no logic into how they're distributed. Let's see. Hey, Devin, what is this? I'm following you, but I don't even know why. Don't worry about it. Just stick around. It's a fun place to be. This is the page for TerraGenesis, which is a mobile game that you may have played about landing on Mars and terraforming it and other planets. I'm the guy who made it. So, hi. Let's see here. I love your shirt. Thank you. Kyle says he's gotten that event on normal, so maybe I'm mistaken. That being said, I'm pretty sure that Kyle has started like 85,000 games of TerraGenesis, so he probably knows this game better than I do at this point. Any epic LTEs in the works? I damn near killed myself trying to write the legendary limited time events one per week, bam, 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 bam. And yeah, that was hard. Those LTEs are hard to write, guys. Like, it's tricky. Again, it sort of ties back to what we were talking about earlier, where TerraGenesis is not like a linear game. You can't just get to the end of the level. You can't just kill all the enemies and be done. TerraGenesis is it's a game about balance. It's a game about not overstepping just as much as it is about being sort of weak in your response. And so it's hard to write something that's not just always the same. Like, hey, terraform the planet. Okay, but like you gotta make it more interesting than that. And it's surprisingly tricky to come up with milestones that like make sense but aren't too hard. And then you get random events and all sorts of stuff that, yeah. I'm sure we'll end up writing more limited time events. Just not writing any right now. Sven says, this game is awesome. Thank you. I'm having to scroll back through because I talked about mining for too long because I'm a nerd. Grape from Discord asks, is there a plan to release an official timeline of the TGS universe? Grape, I'm assuming, is J Grape, who is my nemesis, and therefore I should probably just not answer on principle. But the shorter version is probably not just release an official timeline, because that's lame. Like, you gotta do it cooler than that. So yeah, at some point we're gonna be releasing more lore We have some ideas for how to do that. It's just a matter of how. Because you remember that we're a very small company. We're just like 9 people, and a lot of them are marketing and administration and stuff. We have one artist on staff, and she's not like an illustrator. She's like a graphic designer. She does illustrations, but it's sort of hard. How do you present all this stuff in a cool way? We're still working on that, but we definitely want to. Kyle asks, will we get a Zhou LT? Almost certainly, eventually. Zhou's cool. The tricky thing about Zhou, this is, again, like, how do you pick the right milestones and stuff? Like, he's a military guy, and there's no military stuff in TerraGenesis. So, like, what would he do in the game? Like from a mechanical standpoint, like, what in TerraGenesis would Zhou be engaged with? I don't know. I've got some ideas, but we'll see. Let's see. Maybe someday we can convert outposts to cities once they're exhausted. Yeah, that's something I've thought about. It seems like it would make sense. It kind of promotes this sort of like frontier trading outpost, eventually becomes, St. Louis or whatever. But yeah, maybe. Mostly it's just it would be a tricky thing to code. But yeah. How much does carbon give you per kilogram from Kyle? I think it depends on all your culture settings and blah. Questions like these don't have easy answers in TerraGenesis. It's a very complicated game. I really don't know. Whoever made this game, like, what were they thinking? Seriously. Joseph, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Just enough is the answer to that question. They would chuck just enough. All right, we're getting close now, catching back up to the present. It's like I'm time traveling. This is cool. Michelle, you need a writer like me. First off, yes. But second off, you might have to engage Heather in a knife fight because I'm pretty sure that Heather is calling dibs on telling every story in TerraGenesis. You guys, Heather is a steely-eyed missile man and an absolute fiend when it comes to lore. And all I have to do is be like, I wonder what would happen if... And then Heather, like, time warps and goes, and there's like an 800-page stack of papers on my desk with, like, all the lore and all the characters involved and all... Like, I had an idea for a game one time, and she, like, took a long weekend and showed up and had, like, I'm not exaggerating, like a 200-page slideshow walking me through how the game's story would unfold with, like, multiple branching narratives and all sorts of stuff. Heather was instrumental in designing a lot of the governors, which was a lot of fun. I made the game by myself originally, so I designed the original 4 factions, but they didn't really have much of an identity. And then Heather was really instrumental in helping us bring the different factions to life and then picking all the different governors. You guys, I ought to release the spreadsheet that we used to design those governors, because we knew that we wanted for the governors to be, to sort of cover the whole breadth of humanity. Not just racially, but also in age, in gender, in the different factions. We didn't want like all of the black people to be from Horizon or anything like that. We wanted to sort of spread it out, and so we made up this giant matrix of all the different characters with all the different traits and all the different age and race and gender and faction and all this stuff, and sort of broke it out. And so we were like, okay, so what would a elderly woman from the Horizon Corporation be like? What bonuses would she give? And so Heather and I just sort of went through with the artists and came up with all these different characters, and it was nuts. So, oh, Michelle, look at you. I could collab with Heather. I'm trying to start a knife fight here. What are you doing? Look at you being all like helpful and not West Side Story like I told you to be. Kyle, what gave you the idea for the anti-cheat measure? I assume you're talking about the time traveler. So basically, TerraGenesis is a game about time. It's a game about things happening over the course of time. And when I was working on it on my own, all by myself. I did some research into how do games that are based on the clock not get hacked, because you can just change the clock. And spoiler alert for any of you who don't code, the system doesn't know if your clock is right or wrong. There's no thing that you can like get the true time. It's just whatever the clock is set to, that's the time. And so it's a surprisingly tricky thing to figure out if the player changed the clock. And there are ways, a lot of games, this is why if you've ever played a game that doesn't let you play offline, you have to have an internet connection. This is why. It's because they want to check a server that you can't mess with so that they know what time it actually is. I didn't have a server early on, and so I was trying to figure out how do we do this, and ultimately what I decided is you can't reliably check to see if the player put their clock forward. But you can check to see if they went back in time, because that should never happen. Time moves in one direction. There is never an instance in which their clock ought to be earlier than the last time they played. And nobody wants to move their clock forward by 3 days and then just leave it there forever. If you're going to move your clock forward to cheat in a game, then you're going to do it and then you're going to move it back. And so we can detect when you go back. And one thing that I've always had as a guiding principle in designing TerraGenesis and everything else is that it's important to keep everything in universe. Players complain all the time about ads in games, and we actually get hate mail when our ads stop working in the game. And one of the reasons for that is that our ads are integrated into the game world. They are an incoming transmission from a passing ship. And it just makes everything a lot more cohesive. And so I wanted to do the same thing with this anti-cheating mechanism. Oh, hey, we detected that this player just changed their clock backward. How can we sort of punish them for that? And ironically, when I released it at first, it was even worse, because the original idea was that it just sort of zeroed out all your stats. And then people started using it on Venus. They were like, oh yeah, Venus has a really huge atmospheric pressure, but it's okay. Just change your clock and then change it back, and it'll drop your pressure to 0, and then you don't need to worry about it. It's like, damn it. And so I changed it to where now it adds pressure and tanks your economy and a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's the origin of the time traveler. Let's see, yeah. Yes, also we like being able to pay rent. That's true. I mean, we don't like being able to pay rent, but we need to. Let's see. Kyle says, I love the faction ships that you can see on your world. Thank you! Those were a lot of fun. Those were definitely fun. It was surprisingly tricky, though. There's a little behind the scenes of TerraGenesis thing. The spaceships are not in the same universe. In the game, there's a camera. When you're designing the game, there's a camera that you can place that is looking at the planet, and then obviously when you tap certain things, the planet sort of moves, and we just move the camera to do that. But here's the funny thing. There is what's called an orthographic camera. An orthographic camera is one that doesn't, things don't get smaller as they get further away. So everything is exactly the same size regardless of distance from the camera. It's good for like blueprints and that sort of thing. But one of the things that it also does is orthographic cameras make a really good representation of huge objects far away. And so, for example, planets. Without an orthographic camera, it can often look like a tennis ball, sort of like right in front of you. It doesn't look like it's actually that big. But with an orthographic camera, there's no sort of depth distortion, and so it looks like you're looking at something way the hell away. And so we were like, hey, sweet, we'll use an orthographic camera. It makes the planets look better. And then we wanted to add these spaceships, but when we started animating the spaceships, they start from like here, and then they go past the camera, and then they fly toward the planet. And it's an orthographic camera, so even though they're moving forward, it's the same size. It's like the ship just sort of appears right here, and then it doesn't look like it's moving away at all because it's not shrinking. And so we had to animate a second camera in the scene, which is a perspective camera, and then we animate the ship in front of that, and then we overlay the two images. So if you actually look in the editor, like when I look at TerraGenesis, what I'm actually seeing is that there's a planet with a camera pointed at it, and then over here, there's another camera with a ship that flies like this, and then the system is just taking these two cameras and putting them over each other. So just a weird little funny thing that we had to do to get the graphics to look right. Michael Speedy Calloway has not played in long enough. There's characters now? What have I missed in the 2 years I haven't played? Yeah, there's like 50 of them. I think we have 47 characters from all the different factions. There's also a 5th faction now. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's happened in the last 2 years. You should definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. See, I fell behind again. Sips from TARDIS mug. Yes. Yeah, Michael says, back when I played, the factions were just symbols with stories and government settings. Yeah, there's a lot more now. There's faction-specific random events. There's faction-specific victory conditions. There's limited time events. There's new playable worlds and a whole bunch of stuff. It's super fun. We've been busy. Alex, what's the meaning of Christmas? Hunter, you would never understand. Just don't try. Just sit at home and wait for the visit from Jacob Marley like you deserve. Chelsea seems to have said something objectionable in front of my mom, but I didn't see what it was, and that's even funnier. So, Kyle, hope you have a fun Christmas and New Year, Alex, and everyone at Edgeworks and Tilting Point. Thank you, Kyle. That is very sweet. Chris Rock says Nubia is my favorite. Nubia is really cool. Nubia is definitely up there for me. I've got a bunch of different favorite governors. I also have a soft spot for the original 4 faction leaders. Alana is just so awesome. She's so gorgeous, and like Apollo Matiba is just so great. There's so many. All right. Oh yeah, for those who don't know, by the way, what Hunter is referencing, David Munoz, 2 of the governors are based on my parents. So if you ever wondered who birthed this guy, they are David Munoz from the UNSA is modeled after my dad, and Rebecca Freya O'Rourke, the Rose Queen of the Daughters of Gaia, is based on my mom. So now you know what my parents look like. Important skill for any aspiring stalker. Let's see here. Michelle, is Faizah truly lucky? I always seem to have better cultural events when she's in a city. Ooh, no, but that's cool. I like that idea. We've toyed around with different governor ideas. At one point, we were talking about adding a new game mechanic into the game based on happiness. So you could be like terraforming the planet, but your people are miserable, or whatever. Especially if you start to do cultural choices that are different from what your people need. So like if you play as the Sons of Hephaestus and you terraform the planet, your people are going to be pissed because this isn't what they believe in. And when we were toying around with that, we talked about, you hear every so often about like some town in Alaska or whatever that has a dog for a mayor or a cat for a mayor. We were going to have an animal like that, and it just increased happiness. It didn't do anything. It was just everybody got a little bit happier because their mayor is a dog. So who knows? Maybe we'll add that later. But I like the idea of a governor that's just lucky and you just get stuff because they are. Iman Economist, which I don't know why that's hard to say, but it is every single time I try to do it. She asks, who's your favorite governor? Which governor are you most like? Which one do you think you'd be friends with? Favorite? I like Nubia, I like Apollo, I like Alana. See, this is the part where I start to show off the fact that I don't know them all by name. I like Kainoa, the Gaian lieutenant, is really cool. There's, I'm totally spacing on her name. The UNSA Inuit chick who I think lives on Europa is pretty awesome. As for who I would get along with most, I think Neil is just the coolest guy. like of all of them. Like he's the one that you'd want to just like chill and have a beer with. He's pretty laid back and cool. I've been having a lot of fun working on their backstories, which, by the way, the character backstories that we post every week are written by a Tilting Point employee named Mikhail, who is awesome. He actually was working on our game for a long time, and he started writing those, and then he moved on. He doesn't even work on TerraGenesis anymore, and but he's so good at writing these character bios that we were like, hey, Tilting Point, you can take Mikhail, but like, can you have him keep writing these things? And so now he doesn't even work on TerraGenesis, but he's still writing the bios. So he writes the initial draft, and then he runs it by me, and I sort of change anything necessary for the lore or for, especially for scientific accuracy, because nerd. And then we push it out. So that's where those come from. Hunter says Apollo is his favorite, although clearly not, because he misspelled Apollo. And it's because he's a craven and greedy man. So that's that. Amberly says Steve is, yeah, Steve is good. Steve, for those who don't know, the governor named Steve is a reference to Amberly and the fans declaring that Steve was constantly messing up their cities. And so we decided to immortalize Steve as a governor, which was charming. I love fan art and fan creations and fan fiction and stuff, by the way, just so you know. I can't get enough of that stuff. I love it when fans come up with theories. I love it when fans come up with stories. I love it when fans make artwork. I've still got a picture on my computer that somebody made. It's so subtle, but it's so awesome. It's a picture of the moon, and it's just like this rocky landscape of gray and white rocks. And it's kind of high contrast, like there's bright lights. And then off in the distance, there's a shadow that kind of looks like a person walking. And it's like you wouldn't even notice it at first. And it's the hiker that shows up in the random event. And I love it so much. So yeah, always a big fan of that kind of stuff. Let's see. No, Lacey would never associate with a Gaian. Lacey is deep Hephaestian. Heather is deep Gaian, and watching them argue in the office is truly hilarious. Fast forwarding here through some comments. Would you consider renaming Frank Srikar to John Farnham since he takes the pressure down? That's funny. And yes, I was referring to Anu. Yes, that's right. Heather named them all, by the way, and they all have meaning. So just so you know, we didn't sit down with like a random name generator or anything. Heather went on a deep dive, as she is wont to do, and was like, oh, interesting, this character is from Kenya. I wonder what famous Kenyan scientist we could name them after. And so literally like every single character in the game has a name that is built in lore of particularly scientific history, but also just like local history and people who are similar to the character of the governor that we were making and all sorts of stuff. It's fast. She's got a huge doc of the sort of backstory of how she came up with each name for the different characters. It's awesome. You guys, Heather's really cool. She's kind of like the anti-Hunter in that way. So yeah. Let's see. Kyle, Alex, did you hear about my pink world named Ekman? I did not, but it sounds charming. You need to, I'll see if I can find the picture. Yeah, see, and now we're just having a Heather appreciation moment in the chat, because why wouldn't we? Heather's awesome. So, we've got about 15 minutes left, and Heather agrees, because of course she does. Humility is overrated. Hunter has a fan. Felicity is on Team Hunter. Oh, Felicity, you're going to be so disappointed. All right. So, keep the questions coming, by the way. We've got 15 minutes left in the thing. I am happy to talk about anything. In the meantime, I'm going to do another plug for our YouTube channel. Heather or Chelsea or somebody pop the link in the chat again. my mom thinks Hunter needs a hug, but sadly, Hunter does not deserve a hug. So yes, check out our YouTube channel. We've got a couple of shows going right now. One of them is a vlog, very much like what you're watching right now, where I sit in front of this fancy glowing wall and talk about stuff. I talk about TerraGenesis, I talk about space, I talk about science, I talk about all sorts of cool stuff, whatever's on my brain. Get pumped, because the next episode coming out next week is the top 5 planets and moons to spend Christmas on. We got a lot of cool stuff. The other thing that we're doing is called The Synthesis. It is a live show on Twitch hosted by me and Lacey Hannon, who is my wife and the co-founder of Edgerix Entertainment, where we sit down each week and we talk about a movie or a TV show or a book that deals with science or history and how it represents that real science or real history. Does it, first off, is it just accurate? Does it get it right? Does it integrate it well into the story? Does it keep it interesting? Does it communicate everything it needs to? We're having a grand old time. We did Apollo 13, we did Gravity, right now we're doing The Martian chapter by chapter, and it's a lot of fun. So we do it live at 5:30 on Thursdays, Los Angeles time, and that's on Twitch, and then we mirror it on YouTube the next morning. So this morning we just posted the latest episode, so be sure to check that out. Shout out to Chelsea, by the way, the top queen of the community. Damn right. Similar to Heather being the anti-hunter, another anti-hunter that we have is Chelsea, who runs all of our social pages for TerraGenesis. She's the bomb, and basically the one good thing that Hunter ever did was bringing her on board. So, you know, I guess everybody has a good day. And Michelle, I'm still trying to figure out what should be your book discussion after The Martian. Yeah, we have a list of things. Feel free to suggest them. I will add it to the list for sure. I've got like a list of sort of the really good stuff that we ought to talk about, like The Martian. I'm excited to do The Expanse, although Lacey has basically already promised me that we're not going to be doing a chapter by chapter read-through of the entire 9-book Expanse series, which breaks my heart, but I understand it, I guess. And but we're going to be doing, you know, The Expanse. We're going to be doing, we did Apollo 13 and all that sort of thing. Then we have a category of like, I don't know how this is going to go. You know, this is stuff like First Man, the movie about Neil Armstrong that came out that some people really liked and some people didn't. Ad Astra is another one that had sort of uneven reviews. And then we also have a list of stuff that we know is not that good, like Red Planet from the 90s or whatever. Regardless of whether or not you like the story, the science is a joke. So yeah. I don't know how we're going to mix and match all of that, but there's definitely going to be more to come after The Martian. I think we're on, at the current rate, The Martian, we're going to be done in like 6 episodes, something like that. And then we're going to do one more for the movie and then move on. So we'll see that later. Felicity asks, will there be a Q&A session at some point, maybe after the pandemic, with the whole crew? It would be cool to see everyone together. Yes, I would love to see everyone together. It hasn't happened for like a year. Listen, working from home is cool, but also like I miss my team. They're really cool. I miss having everybody in a room and talking about ideas and kicking around, you know, just like there's stuff that happens when you're all sitting at desks next to each other and just talking that like you get ideas that you don't get on a Zoom call. So, that being said, our set was built to handle groups of people. Here, this set that I'm sitting on right now, we've got other chairs with microphones and, you know, all that. It was designed for group interviews and that sort of thing. And yes, we want to do stuff with the whole team, but they can't be around each other because there's a disease. And we finished it like right as the pandemic was starting, which was excellent timing. So basically the only thing that this huge room gets used for, huge room, by the way, huge room, the only thing that this room gets used for is me sitting in this chair making vlogs and then filming the synthesis, and then we just like go back home. So it's lame. Yes, I want to introduce you to the team. I want to do featurettes. We did actually, if you're curious just to like see their faces and stuff, if you go to our YouTube channel, we did a series of Meet the Team videos, so you can see a couple of minutes of each team member. Although even that, like Tanya doesn't have one of those. It's lame. This plague is lame, is really what I'm saying. Chelsea says she hopes that bit was recorded. Hey, it is in fact still recording. We had some problems with it earlier, freezing. So, yeah. Michelle, I reread the book so I could comment effectively. I devoured it less than 24 hours. It's so good, right? The Martian is so good. Michelle, by the way, be sure to comment and let me know if yours is a name that I would recognize. Are you Iman Economist or anything like that? Are you Jay Grape? Oh, Michelle, are you my nemesis? All right, we'll figure it out. We'll figure this out. COVID is Steve if he was a villain. Yeah, basically. Let's see here. All right. Got 10 minutes left. Be sure to post any questions, game, science, YouTube, anything at all. You could ask me my favorite color if anybody cared, you know. Let's see. Kyle is Gaian Soldier. That I knew. I know a few of the Discord names from the Q&A that I did on Discord, but I haven't actually connected any of the Twitch names to other people. So, Felicity might be one of those two people you mentioned. Oh, really? Is that you? But which one? Are you the one I like, or are you the one I don't? So, more story content soon. There will probably be more limited time events before too long. I'm toying around with some other means of delivering lore, like short YouTube videos or other sorts of things. Who knows? Maybe I'll run a D&D campaign in the TerraGenesis universe. Is that something that anybody would be interested in? I'm a big D&D guy. Thanks to Lacey. My favorite color is green, by the way. Thank you for asking. So yeah, I'm hoping to release some more lore soon. We've got so much. You guys, you have no idea. Like, there's the stuff that we put in the limited time events is just like bare top layer. Just, there's so much more that we need to figure out how to get out. Evil Santa alien limited time events. Amberly, remind me never to put you in a room with Hunter, because that could lead to bad things. Hunter's been pushing for that sort of thing for a while now. Kyle, why was the LTE rewards changed? That I am actually going to, in all seriousness, put on Hunter. Hunter defines the rewards for the limited time events because he has, you guys, Hunter and spreadsheets. It's crazy. He's like friggin' Mozart with money spreadsheets. Anyway, he does all sorts of crazy calculations about how each milestone should be rewarded and how the total event should be rewarded and all that kind of thing. And he runs like A/B tests, and like sometimes when we do events, different people get different rewards as a test to see like how different groups perform and whether it encourages people to, you know, play more or that sort of thing. So it's definitely a complex thing how we define the rewards, but they're always going to be optimized. Like the LTE rewards are always going to be sort of tweaked and adjusted over time, just like the LTE difficulties. We've got some people responding about D&D. Hunter wants to play a D&D game. You guys, Hunter and D&D, my God, he's in, like, I'm not exaggerating, I think he's in like 6 weekly games. It's crazy. I don't know how he has time to curl up with his spreadsheets to keep him warm at night. I honestly don't. Michelle seems to be a D&D player because Michelle is good people. Let's see. Heather is interested in both Dungeons and Dragons, neither of which exist in space. You don't know that, Heather. You don't know. All right. Raziel says, check some questions from Discord. Do we have more questions from Discord? Oh, we've got a bunch of D&D players. That's awesome. Haha! What about the SpaceX Dragon? Owned. You just got owned by Felicity. Excellent. Let's see here. Chelsea says, shout out to Hunter for being a great product manager, though. That's because he's her boss and she has to say that. No one actually feels that way. No, just kidding. Hunter's cool. Hunter's an eminently tolerable person, really. So in space travel, what is the mechanism for long-distance travel in reasonable time periods? The answer to that is constant acceleration. It's insane how fast you can go with even a tiny amount of constant acceleration. Like, I posted a chart on Twitter recently, which is like, the funny thing is that like the further away you go, it's like you can get there even faster. So like if you're going to Jupiter with 1g of acceleration, it's going to take a few months. But if you're going across the galaxy, it's only going to take like a couple of years. It's crazy. Michelle, guess what? I'm a halfling cleric, nearly so in real life. I am the opposite of a halfling. I'm 6'4", but I am also a cleric. I am in the one game that I'm playing right now, I have a cleric, which is of the light domain, and then subclass or multi-classed into necromancer wizard. So I've got like a Harvey Dent yin and yang thing going on, with one side of me being all about lightness and good and the other about necromancy, which is fun. Wow, I think everybody in the chat is seriously like a D&D player. That's amazing. Kyle, how rare are 9.0 quakes on your worlds? That is actually a really easily answered question. The way we calculate the magnitude for earthquakes is what is it? I think we generate a random number between 1 and 100, and then we take the square root of it, I think, is how we do that. So, or between 1 and 90, I guess. And we take the square root of it. So if you want to calculate, the lower ones are a lot more, or maybe the inverse square root, something like that. Anyway, there's a formula that means that the higher the number of the earthquake magnitude, the less likely it is. And it's just a smooth gradient of likelihood, so that the lower numbers are more likely, and then the really big ones are pretty rare. Felicity has a half-orc barbarian who believes she's a wizard. That's genius. That's awesome. There is a lot of potential there. Lacey, my darling wife, who has the looks of a supermodel, also plays barbarians all the time, and it's awesome. She is the scariest mofo out there in D&D, and it's awesome to watch. Let's see. Chris, always accelerating halfway change vectors. Exactly. It's called the flip and burn. You burn toward the thing, and then halfway there you flip around and you start burning back. I did a video. It was posted earlier in the chat. Let's talk interstellar travel. It's 45 minutes long because I have no chill, and yeah, we go into all different means of traveling between the stars, including constant acceleration, like you said. Chelsea Ragnarok asks, how about adding the legendary LTE planets as a fictional pack part 2? No need to put the milestones, just make the planets available. That is something that we've talked about, is how we're going to add more planets. So basically, I used to add planets as in-app purchases, like the historical alerts and all that kind of stuff. But we started hitting a couple of different problems with that. One of them is that at a certain point, nobody's going to pay $50 for a mobile game. Like, you know, when you keep adding planets, it sort of gets more and more expensive. And then the other is that they get boring. Oh, look, it's another rock. This one's cold. Cool. It's Mars, except this time it's yellow. So we started doing bundles that had storylines like Trappist 1 and Historical Alerts, and then eventually we started doing limited time events. And so Hunter tells me, with all his magical game industry publishing wisdom, that the smart way to release new planets would be to release them as limited time events. So rather than just release a planet and it's just part of a pack that you have to pay for, it's a limited time event that everyone can have. And so that's probably what we're going to be doing for more planets in the future. We have some ideas for some new planets. In particular, I have sort of fallen in love with this idea of the inverse Earth. I'm not going to normally tell people about upcoming planets, but I really like the idea of an inverse Earth where all the oceans are land and all the land is oceans. Just kind of a fun thing that might be cool to play around with. All right. Are you going to make population growth calculate properly offline? I find it annoying how it grows faster when playing the game and compared to getting... I didn't know that was happening. I'll look into it. Seems weird. So pretty simple. It's just multiplying by time, so I'm surprised that would happen. All right, we just hit the 1 hour mark, so I'm going to start wrapping this up. Last call. Michelle said, I watched that whole episode. I learned more than I ever wanted to about interstellar travel, and I'm already a nerd. Oh, Michelle. You're good people. All right. So, yes, that looks like it is... oh, Chelsea, does the planet generator actually randomly generate planets, or are they already made? Oh, no, they are randomly generated. A whole bunch of different algorithms for randomly selecting different things. Obviously, there are sort of boundaries for what it can come up with. There are guidelines for how it generates planets. But no, every map is generated randomly. All the different, planetary stats, temperature, pressure, and all that kind of stuff is randomly generated, and the names. So the only thing that's deterministic is all of the randomization is based on the name. So if you generate a planet with the same name twice, it will always have the same stats. But yeah, aside from that, it is totally random. I did the math one time, and it's like the number of planets that you can generate in TerraGenesis is in like the quintillions or something like that. So Felicity, pineapple on pizza, Y or N? I'm boring. I eat cheese pizza, so I say no, but I'm open to being wrong. So, all right, that is the hour. I'm going to go ahead and sign off and say thank you to everybody who watched. This was super fun, and yeah, I love doing this. We're going to be doing this monthly, so stay tuned. We're going to be announcing, we're going to be hopping platforms like Facebook and Discord and YouTube and, jumping around, but stay tuned, send in questions and that sort of thing, and yeah, tune in on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you get new episodes, and I'll see you around. Happy terraforming.